Welcome to this explainer. The fatal shooting of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson literally shocked the nation. But you know what? The legal battle that's followed is proving to be just as unprecedented. Today, we're unpacking the whole shebang, the intense investigation, the evidence, and the incredibly strict legal standards now at play in the courtroom. Let's dive right in.
Picture this. It's December 4th, 2024. One ordinary morning. Brian Thompson is simply walking toward a hotel in Midtown Manhattan for an early morning investor conference. It was supposed to be a standard, totally routine corporate trip. But in a matter of seconds, that ordinary morning was shattered by one burst of gunfire. A masked gunman approached, opened fire, and then just instantly vanished into the dense morning crowds of New York City. This sparked one of the largest murder investigations in American history. The timeline of how this all unfolded is wild. It escalated with staggering speed. We have December 4th, the shooting. Then literally hours later, a frantic evidence-gathering operation kicks off, with detectives piecing together the escape route block by block. Days later, a massive nationwide manhunt culminates in an arrest. And that brings us to present day, right in the middle of this high-stakes trial.
Now you have to remember, this wasn't just any executive. Brian Thompson led one of America's largest health insurance companies. So naturally, the shooting became an instant, dominant national headline. News networks are interrupting programming, social media absolutely explodes with theories, and millions of people were left demanding to know, was this a random act of violence or a carefully planned assassination?
With the entire nation demanding answers, investigators were thrust into a frantic race against time. Detectives knew that every single minute mattered here. I mean, Midtown Manhattan is surrounded by major transit hubs, right? Penn Station, the Port Authority, subway lines connecting the entire eastern seaboard. If they didn't act with absolute urgency, the person responsible could just slip onto a train or bus and disappear completely without a trace.
To stop that from happening, investigators couldn't just rely on a single clue. They had to meticulously stitch together both a digital and physical footprint. We're talking surveillance footage, ballistics, digital records, and travel history. Basically layering thousands of hours of video over travel logs and matching bullets from the crime scene to digital data. It's like a giant puzzle. They were rebuilding the suspect's exact path, step by step, through one of the most heavily surveilled cities on Earth.
And that meticulous tracking ultimately led authorities to a young man named Luigi Mangione. Apprehended just days later outside of New York State, he suddenly went from just a face in the crowd to the absolute center of America's most heavily scrutinized criminal case.
Now, before we go any further, it is absolutely crucial to anchor our conversation in the bedrock of the justice system, presumed innocent unless proven guilty, beyond a reasonable doubt. Upon his arrest, Luigi Mangione pleaded not guilty to the charges. Under the law, he is completely presumed innocent unless proven otherwise. And let me tell you, his defense team is fiercely challenging the prosecution's narrative at every single turn.
So, what does this all mean? Well, it brings us to the pivotal question bridging the intense manhunt on the streets directly to the showdown in the courtroom. What exact evidence led investigators to Luigi Mangione? And, more importantly, will that evidence actually hold up and convince a jury? We're no longer dealing with initial shock or media speculation here. We are stepping right into the rigid, demanding structure of the law.
Once we get into the courtroom battle, public speculation completely vanishes. The flashy headlines, they don't matter anymore. Now, every single photograph, every forensic report, every digital footprint, and every witness statement is stripped down and examined under the most intense legal scrutiny imaginable. The evidence itself is finally facing its ultimate test.
What we're watching unfold are two entirely incompatible narratives colliding head-on. On one side, you have the prosecution claims. They argue that when you put the surveillance, the forensics, and the digital records together, it forms a clear, consistent story of guilt. On the flip side, we have the defense rebuttals. They argue this picture is built on a flawed interpretation, relying way too much on assumptions. They maintain that the prosecution's timeline relies on massive circumstantial leaps rather than concrete, definitive proof. This entire clash hinges on one massive legal hurdle: beyond a reasonable doubt. This is the incredibly high legal standard required for a criminal conviction. Legal experts closely following this trial suggest it probably won't be won or lost with a single smoking gun. Instead, it really comes down to whether the jury believes the prosecution's overall puzzle leaves absolutely no room for alternative explanations, or if the defense has successfully shown that legitimate, reasonable doubt still exists.
But, the gravity of this case extends far beyond the courtroom walls. It hasn't just captivated the legal world, it has captured the attention of the entire country, touching on some incredibly sensitive and deeply felt societal nerves.
Seriously, the trial has become a massive lightning rod for much larger societal debates. We're talking about public safety and the shock of violence in major cities. It's highlighting the immense modern pressure on corporate figures in America today, and perhaps most notably, it's exposing the dangerous friction between internet sleuths on social media throwing out wild theories versus the critical importance of actual due process in a court of law.
Which brings us to right now, waiting for the verdict. The crime scene is cleared, the rapid-fire investigation is over, the witnesses have testified, and both sides have firmly argued their positions. Now, the final decision rests completely and entirely in the hands of the jury. Their answer will not only shape Luigi Mangione's future, but it's going to finalize one of the most heavily analyzed cases in recent memory.
So, we have to ask, when the verdict is finally read, will the evidence finally bring complete clarity to what happened on that ordinary morning? Or will this case remain one of the most fiercely debated mysteries of our time? Thanks for joining us for this explainer. Keep your eyes on the courtroom because this is far from over.